Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of It Might Be You. I have a guest with me today, Jana Osta. She is a health and wellness coach as well as a yoga and meditation teacher. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you. How are you, Leia?
I am great. I'm great. I'm excited to get to know you and learn your story. Um, so, with that, share a little bit about you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to be sharing my story, sharing it with you specifically and with your audience. So, yeah, as you said, I'm a health and wellness coach. I'm also a Kundalini yoga teacher, which is a very specific meditative and spiritual yoga practice, let's say. Yeah, and I had a long time focused in corporate for the longest time in my life. So I come from a corporate background, which means I worked in marketing, in business for over 10 years. And somewhere along the way, I found yoga, and from there, my journey grew for me to become who I am today.
Awesome. So, we're just going to jump right in. What was your it might be me moment where you knew you wanted to change from that corporate lifestyle to what you're doing now?
Yeah, ever since university, not even corporate world, I felt like I'm in a system that I don't really fit into. I always felt like I was being pushed into things. I felt like I was being pushed into studying business marketing because it was what would make me successful.
Mm-hmm.
Quotation marks successful. I was pushed into applying and seeking big corporate jobs, following that corporate ladder. And you know what? I was quite successful. I was doing well, really successful, top of my game, very hardworking, very committed. But there was always this question almost every day that comes up to me, which is this it?
Mm.
And I always felt like, oof, is this it? Is this my life? It didn't feel right for a very long time. I'm saying more than 15 years or so with this question. This question of, is this it? I have to do this? Is this is the rules I need to follow? This is what I need to do. So it was a lot of this feeling of I have to be here. This is what I should be doing. This is what success is. This is what is expected of me. And I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you that could be so extremely draining,
Yeah.
very draining, up to a point where I was crying almost daily. Because that reached a point, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Day after day, till a point where I was like, this is not it. But I have no clue what to do because I drove my life into that system. I studied to get into that system. I worked hard to be in that system. I was able to join big corporate companies. I was able to go up that corporate ladder. And now I'm asking all these questions and not sure what the answer is. So I went into a very deep hole of stress, anxiety, disconnection, feeling like I don't belong, crying, demotivation, lack of inspiration. And in a way, that was the moment, I would say. That was the moment where that sparked something. That sparked something, which was the beginning of the awareness of this is not it.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning of, you know what, this is not it, right? And from there, I think that awareness just started inviting things into my life. So for me, it was yoga. And for many people, it is yoga, which is amazing. And that's why so many people are seeking yoga. But what was in yoga that brought me into that like life defining moment, and I remember it, is in one specific class when we were doing a meditation and the instructor said at the end of the class, so now close your eyes and look inwards. And it was the first time I heard that, like really heard it, and now look inwards. And I left this class knowing that I needed to look inwards, that I needed to stop this seeking. Maybe I should do more. Maybe I should seek something new. Maybe I should apply to a new job. Maybe I should change countries. You know, seeking this system of doing and changing things and new job and more growth into stopping and looking inside. So at that moment, I went to do my yoga teacher training. I went to India for a whole month up in the mountains in Dharamshala, which is a very sacred space, very serene, very isolated. And for a whole month, all I did was just tune into myself. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of, oof, there is something deeper, and now this is the new it, this is it. So there was hope there. This is where my hope journey starts, let's say.
And you know what? I completely relate to that feeling of in question. Is this all there is? Is this it? Like this can't be
Yeah.
it. I don't want this to be it. Um, and mine's was like early, right after I was 20, 21.
Mhm.
Um, and I just decided, you know what? This is not going to be it for me. And I'll just reinvent myself until I figure out what it is. And
Yeah.
it's taken me, like you, like 15 years to finally figure out exactly what brings me the most joy and the alignment and just knowing that I'm being authentically Leah.
Mm.
And it was hard pressed. It was a fight to get that, but it's been worth it. And like you said, it's that peace.
Mm.
Um, there's no feeling like it. I think mine's, I haven't felt freer, um, just to be me ever in my life. And it really started for me. The big pillar for me was learning self forgiveness for
Mm.
so many different things, but mostly um, adopting, identities that didn't really fit me. And like you said, with society, you are forced to kind of fit into a mode that maybe you don't, want to be. And I've always kind of considered myself a rebel.
Mm.
And doing the norm was never of interest to me. But like you
Mm.
said, I didn't want to be poor. Wanted to
Yeah.
have nice things, and so I did what I thought I had to until I could, figure out what really brought the most joy for me. So with that, I have some questions about making that transition for you. Did you have um, support in doing that?
I would say at the beginning, no. At the beginning, I didn't have support because I was really moving away from something that I've built for myself. I was married. I was, starting not kids, but kind of building for a family. I was successful, like I was saying, and suddenly I stopped and I said, I need time to think about everything. So of course, I didn't know how to get the support. I didn't know where to get the support from. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of fear that was coming up for me. Um, but as soon as I started, I found the support. So what I'm trying to say is taking the first step was me on my own. Was me saying, I don't care who's going to come in my way. no one really came in my way. But you hear people, they ask questions. Sometimes it could affect you, it could stop you from doing what you want to do. So at that time, it was just me pushing through. But once I took the first step, so for me, it was my teacher training in India. I met so many people who are on the same journey, and there is when I started to find support. So I think it's just this first step that is difficult. And for me, I had to do it on my own because I was going against all of the support that I had, which was support at work, support to be successful, support to build a family, support to follow the system, support to live in big cities, and all of that. So, yeah, but along the way, I would say what allowed me to grow was support. So, from there on, for the next 7, 8 years after the beginning of my yoga journey, without the support, I wouldn't be where I am today. So, through mentorship, therapy, guidance, coaches, I was able to dig deeper, heal from any past trauma. I was able to trust myself more, reignite that inner power. So, yeah, along the way, support was definitely a big pillar.
And I completely understand that. When you go on a journey for healing, um, those closest to you sometimes have the hardest time understanding um, what you're doing. It's the fear of the
Yeah.
unknown. Like, when I told my family I wanted to learn more about neuro linguistic programming, the first stuff that they said is, "Why? You don't even know what that is. You're messing with stuff you don't know." And I'm like, "You don't, you don't know what it is, and that's okay." But this helps me. This is what I want to do. Um, so I have to say, I guess I was and have been really fortunate um, because my husband has always kind of supported my ideas as far as like pretty much anything that I want to do. He's just like, well, find what brings you joy. Basically, is his thought process. So, you said you were married, and kind of preparing for that family. Was your husband able to grow to understand, what you were
Mm.
seeking?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I also strongly believe, like you were saying, without the support of specifically immediate family, it's really hard to grow. It's really hard to stay on your journey. So he's very supportive, and I don't think I would be where I am today without his support because he financially he took a lot on his shoulder because I was leaving the corporate world, for instance.
Hmm.
But also mentally, he had to change his kind of mindset into, you know what, maybe we have to wait a bit for Jana to grow before we start thinking of building a family. So there was a lot of patience from his side along the way, and I totally appreciate that. But definitely at the beginning that takes time because suddenly you're coming up to someone who's known you for a long time and saying, hey, listen, I'm now about to discover new things about myself, so I'm not sure what's going to come my way, so be ready to expect changes around. So really realizing as a journey along the way that I changed tremendously, and that's not easy for my husband.
Yeah.
That's not easy for him to see, whoa, like you're not the person I met. Thankfully it's towards the better, but still I appreciate that for him it's not an easy change journey as well, but he was able to keep up with that.
And with that, like, has he changed some of his, sometimes I've noticed that it's hard for a spouse or significant other to stay where they're at when you're up leveling. They get interested. Like, my husband is not into any of this, but he asked me the other night to teach him how to do EFT. And that was so like out of the realm of ordinary. I was like, what is going on? But it made me happy because I'm like, okay, you're taking an interest and you're noticing that this could help you. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Along the way, because I was changing a lot, then you start to build expectations of other people having to keep up with your change, right? Like,
yeah,
why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you meditating? Why aren't you on that journey? And I had to learn that, each person has their own journey. Each person is on a different journey and finding space to respect that. And that was a big learning process for me to respect that he is on his own journey and I'm not here to judge what he's going through. And I'm not here to change what he's going through and say, you should do this because that's what's right, because his journey might be very different than mine. And the most important thing I learned along the way is when you change, you start, this energy starts to flow all around you. And without you having to tell your husband or your friends or your immediate family that this is what you should be doing to live a healthy and happy life, they start to feed onto this energy subconsciously. And yeah, sometimes I catch him chanting, sometimes I catch him deep breathing, so things happen without you having to force them onto people around you. And that's something that I really learned as the best process for couples, when one person is changing and the other is on a different path, is trusting the process and learning through that process. There's also a lot of learning of him mirroring my judgment towards myself.
yeah,
Why are you smoking? But that's me judging my past in terms of smoking. Why are you not doing this? It's me judging myself in a way. So also trusting that, our partners are also a mirror of our inner selves as well. And they're here to teach us something, even with the struggles, even if they're not on this ultimate path that we think they should be on. Yeah, so it's one of the best learning experiences is to grow with your partner in that
yeah,
way. Yeah,
definitely. And I couldn't agree more with you because I know he's on a different journey than me. And even though
yeah,
I know some of the tools and techniques that I use, to dive deep, to heal the traumas could help him immensely. He's just not ready
yeah,
for that. And
exactly.
judging and, you know, browbeating somebody about their journey is not going to help them and not really entice them to, dig deep at all. So
Hmm,
if and when he wants to journey deep, he will, and that's fine.
exactly.
Um, and I guess
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about your yoga practice and the
Hmm,
meditation, um,
hmm,
because for me, I learned transcendental meditation. I
hmm,
tried all kinds of other meditations, but I could never stick with it. Like my mind would just race. I tried the guided stuff. I just couldn't do it.
hmm,
And
hmm.
sitting there for an hour, I couldn't. I could not do it. Um, but learning transcendental meditation um, was a game changer for me
Hmm.
because, like you said, you're never really taught to look within, you
Right.
know, and to sit and try to have a quiet mind. You really get to know yourself when
Hmm.
you're in a quiet place with you. There's no other distraction. So, what, like, I want to know, you said that the yoga that you teach is different than some of
Hmm.
the other um, yoga practices. So, what's different about it?
Yeah. So i- all yogas ultimately take you towards the same ultimate purpose, right? So all yoga is there to take you towards a journey of inner bliss, of being able to find peace even when there's chaos around you. If you being able to be centered within yourself in ecstasy even if nothing around you is working. So it's tapping to this deep power within you to find ecstasy and joy in life, right? But each
Mhm.
style of yoga takes you towards that purpose in a different way. So we're all going there through yoga, but different styles, different methodologies. Like you said, some meditations worked for you, some didn't.
Mhm.
The style of yoga that I teach is called Kundalini yoga. And Kundalini as a word means it's this energy within you, it's this creative energy within you. But most of us live throughout our whole life not tapping into this energy. It's a sleeping energy that lies at the bottom of your spine, at your lower spine, right?
Mhm.
So once we tap into this energy awakens and it's rotating around our spine till it reaches the crown of our head. So it's this expansion from our lower energy centers to our higher energy centers to bring you this awakening. So Kundalini really is this untapped energy that we want to tap into to access our inner and infinite power as human beings. So in Kundalini Yoga, we work a lot on harnessing and awakening that energy. And how we do that is using different tools like breath work, so powerful breathing exercises that really trigger your energy, that really awaken your blood circulation and oxygen levels. Definitely meditation, movement, but the kind of movement we do in this form of yoga is very dynamic. Dynamic as in it's a powerful, strong movement for a long period of time. So
Mhm.
it's like 3 minutes of arms up and down, arms up and down. I'm just giving one example, right? So it's this dynamic, constant movement while breathing with the eyes closed. So it's using the power of movement along with the breath, along with meditation, along with chanting mantras. So using the sound frequency, all put together in one session to take you on this inward journey. You see, it's a bit different than other forms of yoga, which focus a lot on the physical practice alone. But
Yeah.
Kundalini yoga is directly, even if you're just a beginner, session one, you're already meditating, chanting, breathing deeply, eyes are closed, and tapping within. So it's more internalized rather than externalized as a practice. So it's more spiritual, right? So it's less about my flexible body, my ability to stretch in certain ways or handstands or all this cool stuff which we need in yoga, but it's much more about how are you as a spirit today, where are you as a spirit today, how to connect to that spirit body within you. I hope that makes sense and it's clear.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. I think that this conversation has come up a couple different times this week where we focus so much on the body, but we do
Right.
not focus on your inside, your inner spirit, soul, mind.
Mm.
That's where the disconnect comes. I think that the most healing comes from when you go within, and so it sounds like this is a pretty powerful practice. Um,
Yeah.
and when you were learning this, did you know about it beforehand, or how were you introduced to it?
When I did my first teacher training, it was not in Kundalini yoga. It was Hatha yoga and Vinyasa flow. I had no idea what Kundalini yoga is. But then during the first teacher training, a teacher came to give us a special class, and it was a Kundalini yoga class. And this one class, just I experienced something tremendous. For the first time, maybe ever, I've experienced eyes closed for 1.5 hours, dancing freely, shaking, trusting my body, breathing deeply into my body. And it was an experience. It wasn't just I moved my body and I feel relaxed. It was a deep spiritual and healing experience, this one class. And since that moment, I knew that I had to learn this. And I went on to do my second teacher training, which was in Kundalini Yoga specifically. So, Kundalini Yoga, like you said, actually taught me how to connect to God. And when I say God, not in a religious sense, but in a, again, spiritual, divine sense, it allowed me to connect to something bigger, something higher, allowed me to trust that God, no matter what that means to whoever is listening, God as in this infinite energy is within me.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to know that I can access this infinite energy at any time I want. And it was the first time I experienced that. And that's what the practice of Kundalini yoga gave me. This trust that within me are the answers, and within me is a power that I can tap into with tools that are natural and accessible anytime. Right. And that was life changing,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was like the experience that I got. Even though with transcendental, you're sitting up in a
Hmm.
chair and you're quiet. Most of the it's quiet where you're at. I I remember doing it. I learned in a class with other
Hmm.
people, and um, I'm sitting in this room, and it was like everything, all the noise, all the sound, everything just dropped. Couldn't hear anything, um, and I got this overwhelming sense of peace
Hmm.
um, that I had never felt ever in my life. And it's like you said, I knew that I had tapped in to God. I felt that otherworldly presence. Um, and at that point I couldn't get enough of it. I was like, oh, I like this. There's
Yeah.
I want to be able to have that, like you said, to be able to do it naturally is big.
Hmm.
But I'm really loving the idea of the Kundalini because if you have past traumas, um, it takes a little bit more than just meditating. You know, the more I learn as I've delved deeper into the subconscious and things like that, is not only was your subconscious mind there when you experienced that trauma, but every part of you was there. And trauma gets stuck in your body. And if you're able to move and you're doing the breath work and you're meditating,
Hmm.
you're releasing that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and you may not even know that that's what you were doing, but because um, for me, learning more, that that's a big thing. I've had other guests on that talk about getting up and moving to release the trauma from your body and from your cells. So, adding the other two elements of the breath work and the meditation is definitely powerful.
Hmm.
So, how
Yeah,
long have you
definitely.
been teaching it now?
Kundalini yoga for almost 2 years now. So not too long. It hasn't been in my life for a long time, but it's just been the most powerful 2 years of my life, probably.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like you've accelerated like healing during these 2 years of using this
Oh yeah.
particular form?
Oh yes. Big time. Big time. Like you said, it's subtle, as in you might not know that
Mm-hmm.
something is working. It's way out of you. Something is being processed. But how I knew is you start to see things shift around you. Suddenly, the people who used to trigger you don't trigger you anymore. Suddenly, the block that you had is removed. Suddenly, an area you wanted to grow in, which was very challenging, becomes easy. And this is how, for me, I knew that I was healing a lot of trauma that was stuck in, like you said, in my body as well. So, indeed, Kundalini Yoga is a lot about using the body as a tool for healing and processing. And, actually, if you just put 3 minutes of drumming music and just shake your body to it, that's a very healing practice, right? Just shaking the body, expressing your body freely. And I always say that if you look at animals, that's their natural response. right? I mean, if an animal is injured, the first thing a dog or a cat you would see them do is get up and shake the body, and then they just move on as if nothing happened. Like instantaneously, there's like trauma healed, processed, I move on. But with us human beings, we hold on to it for a lifetime. But if we
Yes.
could just shake it off literally every once in a while, that helps a lot. So much healing just through this practice of yoga came into my life, definitely. But I must say that along the way, I did open up more to mentorship and therapy because I knew I was being triggered and things were opening up, and I was opening up to talking about things and expressing myself in new ways. And I knew I needed guidance and support there, so I did seek guidance along that journey. Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah, and trying to think of another question here. I had it, but it just popped out of my head, so it'll come back. Um,
Yeah.
do you well, how has COVID affected your practice as far as seeing students?
Mm.
Um,
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. Specifically for yoga teachers, all yoga teachers, not only yoga teachers, but everyone who shares a practice in a studio, personal trainers, we've all been affected because obviously there's now a different kind of demand, and there's a different kind of way to support people and serve people, and it's not as simple to do it online. The connection with people is different.
mhm.
So for me personally, I teach yoga, but it's not my main. If you want, it's not my job. As
Okay.
in, yeah, I don't do it as a job really. So it hasn't really affected me in that way. I just miss being in a studio. I miss being in community because for me, yoga is all about sharing. It's all about what happens after the class. It's all about the reflection, the connection, the support that you get. From being in any kind of healing circle or healing practice, and that's what I personally miss, is the connection to community. At the same time, I have attended many online courses during COVID, and you know what? I've made so many good friends online, and I had so much support also online. So it's always a learning process of adjusting to the new. And I
Yeah.
guess it's a nice new challenge that yeah, I'm kind of I've opened up to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, you know, last year was a lot for people, um, especially with that community. If you're somebody that thrives more in being around people, I know people were struggling. Um, I am more of a homebody, so it didn't really affect me as it did other people, but I did notice like nobody wants to be cooped up in the house um 24/7, and unfortunately you kind of had to be. So I did do a lot more um exercise and walking and stuff like that than I had done in years. um so have you seen like a I know you're a health and wellness coach. Have you seen an influx of people reaching out for those services because maybe, I know there was there's stress eating, there's,
Right.
you know, the whole nine. There's just so many things that could happen, I know, during last year. So, um, and people just, not knowing how to cope and trying to learn new coping skills because the ones that they may have had just were not serving them anymore. Um,
Yeah.
have you seen that in the communities that you're part of?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially for people who work in offices,
Hmm.
because suddenly you have to switch your whole lifestyle, your ways of working, and you have to be literally ready for the camera. kind of
Yeah.
camera ready all day long. And this, what we call, which I don't really like, but work life balance.
Yes.
There was no longer a line drawn between when do I stop work, I'm at home anyway. So definitely a lot of people reaching out, specifically, I mean, from what I saw, at least in the corporate world. um, I think corporates specifically have been awakened to not only the needs, the must in having corporate wellness incorporated as part of the company. So this has, I think, now and moving forward, this will be kind of a key pillar for any company to survive, is having a wellness strategy for their employees. And we all know the levels of depressions are increasing, stress and anxiety is increasing, and it's for obvious reasons around us. And it's the role of companies to show up for their employees and to support them on this journey, and that's what I see people asking for more than ever.
Yeah. And you're
Yeah.
right. I know, like, fortunately, I already worked from home, so
Mm.
it didn't, like I said, it didn't affect me that much. The only thing I had to get used to was my husband being home.
Right.
And it's like having to draw lines of where you're gonna go work to be out of my hair so I can have some time. Um, but what happened for me last year, where I think it was my stress level increased, was I didn't get a break at all.
Yeah.
Um, being like my main job besides being a life and success coach is I take care of two individuals that are differently abled, and because their programs were shut down and schools were shut down, they were here. So
Mm.
I went from just me being at home by myself to three guys being loud, obnoxious, and just no
Mm.
space to get things done.
Mm.
And energy wise, for me, I'm somebody that needs quiet and kind of alone time and space to recharge my batteries. Um, and a few times throughout that last year, I wasn't able to do that. And so it would manifest in my body as breaking out in hives and things like that,
Mm.
um, which of course is not a good thing. And I've learned over the course of doing this podcast that, that was a boundary issue, that, I wasn't taking care of the boundaries and working at home,
Right.
um, and having to change that lifestyle and maybe having kids in that mix as well, where you have to be a
Mm.
teacher. You're right. There was no balance. So I can
Yeah.
see, you know, the struggle for people.
Yeah.
So what like piece of advice would you give someone, our our listeners right now listening, that might be, on the same journey or a similar journey to what you were a few years ago? Um,
Yeah.
what was the biggest thing, I guess, that helped you?
Yeah, thank you for that. If I am to start with just tapping into the last, point that you were making, on this topic of productivity, society and our culture will always ask for more. We will always be asked to give more, do more. We'll be judged based on our performance, on your achievements, on how much are you showing up, how much hours are you putting in, and that's the system, right? So something so important that I'm in the process of also learning is not falling into the trap of always doing, always being productive, because there will be a point where your body is going to crash and you're going to pay a price for
Hmm.
that. So really stopping and finding a way of, can I do less but be as productive or more productive, and not valuing yourself or putting worth onto yourself based on how much I'm doing in terms of hours and showing up and productivity at work. Really, that that is not going to make a difference in your life. That's not it. That's not what's going to push you forward into success. What's going to push you into success is doing the right thing, is doing the right thing for you. I was successful for a long time at the wrong thing, right? So finding something that you can enjoy what you do at and put all of this productivity into something that you love, so that it doesn't seem like it's draining your energy into burnout, right? So if I am to give an advice, really it would be to that voice within you that we all have, that deep voice that's always kind of creeping in, saying things that we sometimes ignore, whether it is I'm tired, as simple as that, or whether it is the big question of is this it, or who am I, or why am I doing this. Stop to listen, right?
Mhm.
For few reasons, but the key reason is this voice will never go away. This voice is going to stay there. And if you don't listen to this voice, it will manifest somehow into your body, as in, hopefully, God forbid, but most illnesses, energetically, if we were to speak of illness, comes from something not dealt with, right? Something that you're ignoring in your life. So if you're ignoring this voice, it's going to keep coming back to you until you listen, until it says, I told you this is not it. Why are you still doing this? Get up, change, do something, right? And it's going to keep creeping in until you listen and until you create change in your life. So if you have this kind of voice, stop ignoring it. That's my number one advice. My number two advice is you don't need to know what you're supposed to do. Because many people come to me and ask, but I don't know. I'm not sure what I should be doing. I don't know what's my next step. You don't need to know. That's not your job to know what and how it will exactly happen. Yes, but your role is to know what do you need today, now. So I'll give an example. For me, as I was saying, for me, I just enjoyed doing yoga and I kept doing it and I kept doing it and I did more and more. And I went on a teacher training and I went into the community and I had yogi friends and I started teaching yoga. And slowly and slowly and slowly, my life transformed and I'm now doing exactly what I love to do in my life. So you just need to trust where you're at and take one step forward to what you think might be it. Now, whether that is it, or it will transform into something very different in the future, that doesn't matter. You just need to trust to take that one step into the closest thing that feels right, that feels something within me is telling me to go to that class. Something within me is telling me to take that trip. Something is telling me to say hi to this person who might be the person that's going to open the door to the rest of your life. But just trust what something within you is telling you to do next without having a view on exactly how things are going to unfold over the long in terms of in the long run in terms of your life. Stop wasting your time and energy figuring that out. Focus on what you know now, because that is the door that's going to take you onto a long path of transformation.
Awesome. That was great advice. Because I think, some people struggle with feeling like they need to know. It's still that control aspect,
Right,
and that's a trauma response, really. Um, so, learning the beauty of letting go is really important. So,
right.
how can our listeners find you online and on social and all those things?
So my Instagram handle is tune in with Jana. And yeah, my website is tuneinwithjana.com. So you can reach out at any time. I do health and wellness coaching. I really focus a lot on stress management because I believe that that is kind of what stops us from connecting to our potential, what stops us from connecting to the deeper self. So that's something I love to work on. And do follow me for inspiration and for any support that you might need along your way of growth and self discovery, I'm here for you. And if I might add to that, Leah, is, what you were just saying, many people are scared of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the unknown is the space of infinite potential. The unknown is the space where you can create, where you can do anything you dream of doing, is in the unknown. Because if it was known, then there's not much to create then. So trust the unknown, jump into the unknown, and yeah, let it go, let it be, trust the journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story and your journey thus far. I really appreciate it, um, and definitely learning, you know, more about the yoga practice. That was insightful.
Thank you. This was lovely. And I love sharing, anything that could inspire people who feel stuck, who feel like, there's no hope, like, what is happening? Is this it? Just knowing that this is not it, trusting that voice within you. So thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that. This was lovely.
Thank you. Okay, guys, I will talk to you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.